The Crimea Bridge linking the Russian mainland to Crimea is one of Russia's most vital assets. Without it, the artery that ensures occupied Crimea receives the troops, supplies and equipment needed for Russia in the Ukraine war would disappear into thin air. And if that bridge is gone, Vladimir Putin's grip on Crimea slips. Russian citizens will leave the annexed peninsula in droves, and Ukraine will have the first major opportunity it's had since losing Crimea in 2014 to take it back. And now, it looks like Ukraine has the weapon it needs. Ukraine's deadliest weapon yet has one mission: take out the Crimea Bridge once and for all. On September 21, the Kyiv Independent revealed that Ukraine had unleashed a seaborne monstrosity on the audience at the Defense Tech Valley 2025 exhibition. That monstrosity is an underwater drone designed for long-range and stealthy operations against major Russian targets. It's just the weapon that Ukraine needs to get close to the Crimea Bridge, which is also known as the Kerch Bridge. That drone is called the Toloka. In truth, this drone has been known for around 12 months, the Kyiv Independent reports, though known about and publicly revealed are two very different things. Ukraine has conducted strikes with an undersea drone before, though it wasn't clear what the drone was or what it was truly capable of doing. The Toloka's existence has been confirmed since February, when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky introduced the drone as a weapon that could be used to hit ships, ports, and other strategic targets during the 2025 Support Ukraine Summit. But now, more information is available. A lot more. The Toloka has been officially unveiled, or more accurately, Ukraine hasn't just revealed the Toloka, it's revealed 3 of them. That's according to Defense Express, which reveals that the Toloka comes in 3 flavors, with each one having a specific purpose. After all, the largest Toloka is just one of the family of underwater drones, which include at least 3 samples. These are the TLK-200, Toloka 200, and TLK-400, Toloka 400, and of course, the monstrous Toloka 1000, the outlet says. It's the Toloka 1000 that likely represents the biggest threat to the Crimea Bridge. But back to that point in a moment. For now, RBC Ukraine offers the main specifications for each of the Toloka drones. The Toloka 200, which is also known as the TLK 200, is the smallest of the 3 new undersea drones, as its name implies. It's an autonomous drone powered by 2 electric motors that Ukraine can use for short-range missions against Russian targets. Think deployment from a boat in the Black Sea to take out Russian vessels, for instance, or defense against incoming Russian seaborne threats against the Ukrainian coast. This mini version of the Toloka has a 100-kilometer or 62-mile range, and it's powered by a pair of electric motors. Those motors may be the highlight of the entire package, as they allow the Toloka to sail autonomously for up to 15 days. This extended sailing time suggests that Ukraine may also be able to use the Toloka 200 as a patrol vessel of sorts, guarding the Ukrainian coast from threats that the drone automatically attacks as and when they present themselves. The drone uses a satellite-based communication system that reportedly has inbuilt countermeasures against electronic warfare techniques, though it isn't clear what those countermeasures may be. There's also an AI-enhanced inertial navigation system, or INS, in play. Perhaps the use of AI is what gives the Toloka 200 its resistance to electronic warfare countermeasures. RBC Ukraine says that the drone can operate at a depth of up to 300 meters, or about 984 feet, and it has a thermal imager and optical camera that an operator can use to scope out potential threats. Finally, there's the payload, 15 kilograms or 33 pounds of explosive fury that can be delivered to whatever Russian vessel is unaware enough to come across the Toloka 200. RBC Ukraine adds that this smaller version of the drone could also be used to conduct reconnaissance or even to lay mines around the Ukrainian coastline. The Toloka 200 alone would be an impressive feat of engineering, but Ukraine has a lot more up its sleeve. The Toloka 400, which is also known as the TLK 400, is the middle child of the 3 drones Ukraine just revealed, and it has some interesting upgrades over the Toloka 200. It's much larger, for one thing, which means it can carry a heavier payload. Plus, it features a hybrid engine that combines 4 electric motors with an internal combustion engine to give it much greater range and autonomy. On those latter two fronts, the Toloka 400 can travel up to around 745 miles from its point of deployment and is able to sail without human intervention for up to 60 days. That's huge. It means Ukraine can deploy this drone for around 2 months at a time, perhaps to patrol the Black Sea or to lie in wait along with other Toloka 400s for several days before delivering a coordinated strike against a target. The Toloka 400 retains the 980-foot operating depth, satellite-based communication system, and AI-powered INS, though the latter also has a Doppler velocity log, or DVL, that allows it to measure the speed of undersea vehicles. Namely, that DVL will allow the Toloka 400 to keep track of its own speed, perhaps meaning it can speed up or slow down autonomously depending on what suits its specific purpose. Ukraine's middle drone will also have the thermal imager, an optical camera seen in the Toloka 200. These are joined by passive and active acoustics along with radio frequency source targeting, creating a more versatile targeting suite for taking on challenging targets. However, the real headline difference here is the drone size, which in turn leads to a larger payload. According to RBC, the Toloka 400 measures 39 feet long, which is about 4 times the length of its smaller compatriot. That larger size bumps the Toloka 400's payload up to a devastating 1,100 pounds. That's more than enough to do some serious damage to the Crimea Bridge's support struts and foundations. And who knows, Ukraine may use the Toloka 400 to do just that, especially if it's able to get several of them into position to strike a single target. But if Ukraine really wants to devastate the Crimea Bridge, it has another option. An absolute monster of a drone that delivers explosive devastation on a scale not seen in unmanned undersea vessels before, the Toloka 1000. Designed specifically for long-range missions, the Toloka 1000 can serve as both a kamikaze and carrier drone. In the latter case, it appears Ukraine may be able to use the Toloka 1000 to shuttle other drones, such as first-person view strike drones, to locations before unleashing them. That carrier functionality hasn't been confirmed yet, RBC Ukraine reports. On the engine front, the Toloka 1000 has the same basic setup as the Toloka 400 and also matches that version of the drone's 60-day autonomous sailing limit. However, it bumps the range up to about 1,240 miles, which not only puts the Crimea Bridge in range, but also several of Russia's ports. Imagine the drone being deployed to take out ports leading into the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, for instance, or even some of the mainland ports Russia uses for its shadow fleet of oil carriers. Ukraine could do a lot of damage with the Toloka 1000. That's clear from the drone's payload, a terrifying 11,023 pounds. For context, the BBC says that a single Russian artillery shell contains about 6.1 kilograms or about 13.4 pounds of explosive. That means the Toloka 1000 in theory could deliver about 820 times the sheer explosive power of an artillery shell, all zeroed in on a single target. That's not just potential to cause damage, it's enough to cause the outright destruction of whatever the Toloka 1000 hits. Beyond that, the Toloka 1000 has many of the same specifications as the Toloka 400, barring a few differences. For instance, RBC Ukraine says that the drone might be compatible with seabed mapping equipment, which could prove very useful for Ukraine's future. It also makes use of inertial AI networks, along with AI-powered optical, acoustic, and thermal sensors. The drone's electronic countermeasures also include frequency hopping spread spectrum, or FHSS, which is a piece of technology that switches the drone's carrier frequency across multiple channels at random during radio transmissions. Finally, the Toloka 1000's operating depth is interesting. The drone can be made with 2 hulls. The first, which is the composite hull, gives it the same 300 meter or 984 foot depth as the other 2 Tolokas. However, there is a metal hulled variant that has an operating depth of 30 meters or about 98 feet. It's possible that the metal is used, in this case, to protect whatever's inside the Toloka 1000, lending credence to RBC's claim that it can serve as a carrier drone along with being a waterborne kamikaze menace. Somehow, the drone is also the same length as the Toloka 400, though it's much wider, thanks to having a 4.9 foot diameter. That's nearly 4 times the diameter of the Toloka 400, providing enough space to account for the larger payload. To make a long story short, Ukraine has just revealed 3 underwater drones that are as lethal as almost any navy. All 3 are stealthy, they can be loaded with explosives, and are capable of operating autonomously. The 3 Tolokas are a threat to Russia, and they're especially a threat to the Crimea Bridge, and, as the Express reports, the remnants of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. That fleet is already in serious trouble. In May, the Moscow Times said that this once dreaded fleet comprised 132 ships and vessels at the beginning of the Ukraine war. Since Russia's invasion, Ukraine has managed to take out 25% of that fleet, per UK intelligence, prompting Russia to relocate many of its vessels from Sevastopol to Novorossiysk and scale back activity in the Black Sea during the summer of 2024. That withdrawal is part of the reason why Ukraine hasn't been able to take out more of the Black Sea Fleet during the last year or so. However, there is another reason, as the former Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ukrainian Navy, Andrei Ryzhenko, revealed to the Moscow Times. The Russians constantly rotate their ships so they don't stay in one place, Ryzhenko said. They have strengthened the protection of the port in Novorossiysk with aircraft, helicopters, drones, and patrol boats. They've also limited the number of ships at sea. I think there are simply no ships on the routes where drones could attack them. Maybe Russia has developed countermeasures against Ukraine's airborne drones. But the Toloka, a drone that hides under the waves and is almost undetectable until it's delivering its explosive payload to the part of a ship that's almost impossible to protect. That's another story entirely. With the Toloka deployed, Ukraine has the ability to have autonomous drones scouring the Black Sea. If Russia tries to reintroduce any of the Black Sea Fleet into that body of water, Tolokas could take them out before they even know what's coming. And with the 2 largest versions of the drone being able to operate for up to 60 days autonomously, Ukraine can present an ever-present threat in the single most important waterway of the entire Ukraine war. But back to the real reason why Ukraine built the Toloka drones: the Crimea Bridge. Ukraine has targeted this bridge several times in the past. United 24 Media provides the details about the first 2 strikes. In October 2022, Ukraine carried out an attack on the Crimea Bridge that appears to involve covert operatives deploying explosives on the bridge itself. There's still not a huge amount known about how Ukraine pulled this strike off, outside of the Security Service of Ukraine, or SBU, confirming its involvement almost a year after the strike happened. The Guardian also reports that Ukraine detonated a truck, presumably packed with explosives, to take out the bridge. The SBU didn't reveal anything more, likely to ensure Russia would never figure out how such an amazing attack was pulled off. The October 2022 strike was enough to force the closure of the Crimea Bridge. Ukraine's second attempt at the bridge destroyed an entire section of road. In July 2023, Ukraine used unmanned surface vessels to attack the Crimea Bridge. In hindsight, it's clear that this strike, as effective as it was at the time, may have been laying the groundwork for what's to come now that the Toloka is ready to go. Surface drones can be taken out if they're spotted. Undersea drones are far less likely to be noticed as they make their approach. The third of these strikes was as traditional as it gets when it comes to Ukraine's attack against Russian targets. In August 2023, The Guardian reported that Ukraine launched a volley of 3 missiles at the Crimea Bridge, though the attack ended up being unsuccessful. Ukraine used guided S-200 missiles in the assault, forcing Russian authorities to cloud the Crimea Bridge in white smoke to hide it. However, Russia's air defenses took out these missiles, which were old and unsuited to the purpose. This strike happened over a year before Ukraine received permission to start using Western long-range missiles such as Storm Shadow and ATACMS against targets inside Russia. The Crimean Bridge could count as such a target due to its connection to the Russian mainland, meaning these more advanced missiles weren't available to Ukraine during this first strike. Perhaps this strike was never intended to be successful. After all, S-200s are very old missiles, so Ukraine may have been using them to send the message to Russia that the Crimea Bridge was still in Ukraine's sights. Regardless of what the August 2023 strike was supposed to achieve, Ukraine went quiet after it failed. For almost 2 years, Russia must have thought the Crimea Bridge was safe. Then Ukraine struck again. In June 2025, Ukraine unleashed an attack that had some similarities to the method it used in July 2023. Only this time, the attack occurred underwater. The SBU published footage of the blast, which damaged the side of the Crimea Bridge and caused a temporary suspension of traffic along the bridge. If the July 2023 attack was Ukraine proving it could send drones to the Crimea Bridge, the June 2025 attack was a proof of concept for an underwater assault, an assault that, according to the Express, may have been carried out using Toloka drones. That isn't confirmed, though the Express says some defense experts believe the Toloka may already have been used in a recent attack in June on the Crimean Bridge. Has the Toloka been deployed against the Crimea Bridge before? And if so, which one? Based on the footage the SBU shared in June, it doesn't appear that Ukraine used a version of the drone that's loaded with over 11,000 pounds of explosives. Perhaps the Toloka 400 and its 1,100 pound payload were Ukraine's way of proving it could pull off a Crimea Bridge assault using this new drone. Next time, the explosion will be 10 times bigger, and it may just be big enough to ensure that the Crimea Bridge is taken out once and for all. But why would Ukraine want to do that when it could be using the explosives packed into the Toloka 1000 for fighting on the mainland? There are 3 reasons, starting with the sheer cost of the Crimea Bridge. According to the maritime executive, bridges are a bit of a thing for Putin. In 2018, it said that Russia's president is responsible for ordering the construction of at least 16 and possibly 17 of Russia's 25 longest bridges. The Crimea Bridge is the jewel in the crown, and Putin pumped $3.7 billion and 4 years of construction into making the bridge that links Crimea to the Russian mainland a reality. That's a lot of money to go up in smoke if the Toloka 1000 is truly able to take the Crimea Bridge out. Plus, it's money that Russia doesn't have to fund repairs. Some in Russia believe the country is already on the brink of a recession. Putin denies it, saying in a televised address on September 18 that Russia's gross domestic product or GDP slowdown is all by design. The decline from more than 4% GDP growth, this is not a decline, it's a deliberate action, Putin claimed. It's a slowdown in growth in exchange for curbing inflation and maintaining macroeconomic stability. This is likely nonsense. The reality is that Russia faces growing economic pressures, and losing the Crimea Bridge now would likely mean losing it until the end of the Ukraine war. The second reason why this bridge is such a target is its symbolic importance to Russia and especially to Putin. To Russia, the Crimea Bridge almost serves as a confirmation, at least internally, of the legitimacy of the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. Writing for The Spectator, Svetlana Moronet says, the Russian president attended its opening in person, driving a KAMAZ truck at the head of a convoy of lorries. The Crimea Bridge means an awful lot to Putin, as it sealed Russia's occupation of Crimea when it was finished in 2018. All of that work to legitimize an illegal annexation goes up in smoke if Ukraine can take the bridge out with its new Toloka drones. There's also the obvious and almost immediate reason why Ukraine wants to destroy the Crimea Bridge. It's very strategically significant. The Crimea Bridge is the most important artery that connects the Russian mainland with Crimea. Russia uses its roads and railroad tracks to transport everything the Crimea needs to the peninsula. That doesn't just mean troops, equipment, and supplies to bolster Russia's military presence in Crimea. The fuel and goods needed by the 800,000 or so Russians who have moved to Crimea since the annexation come by way of the Crimea Bridge. That bridge is a major factor that allows Putin to keep his grip on Crimea, which means destroying it would loosen that grip. Perhaps it would loosen the grip enough for Ukraine to retake Crimea. After all, it's not like Russia could rely on seaborne routes to continue supplying Crimea. Beyond being slower, those types of routes may no longer be safe now that Ukraine has a new undersea drone capable of patrolling them. The Toloka may just be Ukraine's ultimate weapon for taking out the Crimea Bridge. However, it's also possible that Ukraine won't use it for that purpose at all. There is an argument to be made that Ukraine wants to keep the Crimea Bridge standing so that the Russian occupiers in Crimea can use it to flee when Ukraine's attacks on the peninsula all get to be a little too much for them. Find out what Ukraine's alternative strategy for Crimea might be in our video. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more videos covering Ukraine's latest and greatest weapons.